What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the AWAKEN Catholic Show. I am your host, Nick De La Torre, and today I have a really cool guest with me. Her name is Lauren Loboda, and she is here to talk about her organization, CrisisPregnancySupport.com. Really, really great stuff that they're doing. We're going to get into what it's like to be a life coach, and all of that is coming up right after this. Welcome to the AWAKEN Catholic Show, everyone. This is not your grandmother's Catholic talk show, unless she's a really, really cool grandmother. Lauren, welcome to the show. It is great to have you here. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, awesome. Glad to hear that you're great. Glad to have you here. You and your handsome husband, Mark, who's off screen here, off camera. And you guys made a drive to come out here to our studios. Always love having people here in person.
Yeah.
And this is actually the first episode of the AWAKEN Catholic Show to be produced in our new space. Even though this is our temporary setup, this is our new space. It's massive, and we're in the middle of renovating it. But you are the first guest that I have on the show in this space.
I'm honored.
You should be. It's a real honor for you. Yeah, absolutely. Today we're talking about your ministry of CrisisPregnancySupport.com. It's really the little bit you were sharing with me before we started recording. I'm really excited to get into it. Almost as excited as I am to get into this episode's sponsor, CatholicMerch.store. Thank you for sponsoring this episode of the AWAKEN Catholic Show. CatholicMerch.store is your one-stop shop to get the coolest, completely original Catholic merch. Really, every design is completely unique. You won't find it anywhere else. And also, thank you, CatholicMerch.store, for all of your proceeds supporting AWAKEN Catholic's ministries. Now, Lauren, let's talk about you. So CrisisPregnancySupport.com, you started it, yes?
Correct.
Okay. Now, before we get into CrisisPregnancySupport.com, I want to learn more about you, what it is about your story, your journey that inspired you, that led you towards creating this organization. So talk to us about the beginning of Lauren.
Wow, where should I begin?
The beginning.
Okay, sure. So I am a life coach. That is my job. And I was certified last year in summer of 2021. I hadn't heard about life coaching before 2020. It was then pretty much during the lockdown when everyone was on Zoom that a woman I was following, Sterling Jakewith is her name. She has a Catholic podcast for moms. For quite a few years, 5 years, I was listening to her podcast, and she mentioned she was starting a life coaching group for Catholic moms. It was going to be a group course all on Zoom, and she's out in Idaho, and I've never met her yet in person. And so I said, well, I really like everything she has to say. Why don't I check it out? I'm not really sure what life coaching is. And she has some other Catholic moms on there that are certified coaches, and I started learning about mindset management, which at first you might think is a little woo or new agey.
Well, I mean, the term life coach sounds a little woo. and I mean, there just is a stigma out there, and I'm really, really excited to have you on the show because I think that we need to crush those. Like, people need coaching. A lot of people will say you should go to marriage counseling before you need counseling. Well, that's kind of, I think, some of the premise here is that, like, people need coaching when, not just when there's a disaster happening. Like, people need help, mentorship. People need guidance in processing things, and it isn't all about buy my assortment of original tea, and like I think that there are those types of life coaches that are exploiting people, but I don't think that is necessarily what it is to be a life coach. I think that can be a really healthy, helpful thing. So share with us from your perspective. You were being invited into this group. You didn't know what life coaching was. What was your sense of it at the time?
Sure. So when I started the group, I knew that she was going to be talking about my thoughts, or just moms in general, women, like what our thoughts are doing. If they're negative thoughts, if we're criticizing ourselves and our thoughts, if we're thinking negatively about our life, whether it's husband, kids, work, or just day-to-day stuff, how that affects us. So I could work with that. And I knew her. I mean, she'd been doing a podcast, and she's also a speaker and author, but I knew she was Orthodox Catholic. So I knew she wasn't going to do any weird thing that I didn't agree with. And when I started it, she'd start with prayer when we had the life coaching meetings, and any courses she had, like videos that you could log into and watch, were all in line with the church. So if it was helping you to be a better mom, better wife, there are, along with the liturgical season, she had in Lent, like how to declutter. And towards Valentine's Day, how to love your husband more challenge. So also how to stop yelling at your kids, right? And so my kids encouraged me on that because they wanted to know, why are you all of a sudden on your phone more? What are you doing on this Zoom? And I said, well, this lady's helping me to kind of think about what I'm thinking. And they're like, what does that even mean? I said, well, like to stop and to think about my thoughts and how my thoughts are creating my feelings. And so mindset coaching, take the Catholic side out of it, is just what's going on in your mind.
Yeah.
And like anything in life, like any area of life, you can make it woo, and you could make it new agey. I mean, you could do that in psychology or counseling, or it's easier to do in those fields where we're talking about the mind and the emotions. And so it's easier to bring that spirituality in. But you can make candles and clothing, new agey. So
yeah,
people say that. I say, well, you can also make anything Catholic, but you don't have to have the faith component in it. I'll say, I've had clients who are not necessarily practicing Catholics or who are even Jewish or other faiths. But I say to Catholics when I'm talking about it, well, we know that anything that's beautiful and true is Catholic, or, anything with reason, it's faith and reason. So anything that's reasonable or common sense or good logic is Catholic, but we maybe not say we're talking about Catholic theology. So that's a little bit of what I got exposed to in that group program. But I knew right away, like 2 weeks in, I'm going to be a life coach. I just knew it, because I was like, game changer.
Okay, wait, but talk to me. Like, so you're going through some of these practices, your kids are noticing, and you're explaining it that you're getting help thinking about what you think, or how did you word that?
Yeah, thinking about my thinking.
Thinking about your thinking.
And then also, realizing that my thoughts are creating my feelings. And most people act on their feelings. So if you feel stressed, overwhelmed, out of control, you're going to act by yelling or checking out and just like hiding in the bathroom and looking at Instagram. Or you're going to, like the freeze or flight, right?
Yeah.
So
So for the first couple of weeks, what were the things you started to notice were happening differently for you?
I'd like to think that I changed that quick. No, it took quite a few months for my behaviors to change, but I just noticed that what she's saying is true and what she's saying could help me.
Okay.
We would have to ask Mark, because it's hard for me to say, I was being more introspective and working on changing, like we always are, especially, for those of us living out our faith. Like, we go to confession and we try to follow what we said we were going to do or the priest advised. But it's hard for me to say how much it changed. I would ask my kids every once in a while, and my oldest, she's a teenager, she said, what I like is that you actually follow through on things. Like you would say, we're not going to eat this way, or we're not going to go here anymore. Things are going to change. We're getting up earlier, and then you never really do it.
Wow.
And she goes, you're actually doing those things. So the younger kids were like, you're not yelling as much. And so I don't know. I'm not a yeller, but I just would kind of lose it because I just felt, okay, so Mark should be on. We need what I think and then the truth. How I see myself and how it really was. Every once in a while, the kids would be like, you need to go back on because that lady isn't helping you stop yelling. But that was kind of how I explained it to them and how I sold it to myself. Like, I have to pay for this. So what am I going to get out of it? I'm going to be calmer with the kids. That's what I wanted. I think I'm quite calm and kind of like a low-key person, but we have 8 kids.
That's a few. You got a handful there.
And, it's a lot of pregnancies, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of nursing, a lot of all that. And then now, like I said, I have a teenager, there's that, and there's the toddlers, there's all the things.
Which, by the way, looking at either of you and both of you together, I would never have guessed that you guys were even old enough to have 8 kids.
One is adopted and one is a set of twins. So
Okay.
only
Well,
pregnant
you're
6
cheating a
times.
little bit.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks
No,
for the
seriously.
compliment.
Yeah. You both
Yeah.
have this, vivacious youthfulness to you. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. What's the question?
No, it's okay.
Now I'm
No, so you're going through it. You're experiencing what it is to think about your thoughts. Your kids are noticing some changes in you. Presumably, Mark is. Oh yeah, he's giving us the nod. And you're thinking to yourself, the things that I'm learning are so true that I'm buying into this so much that I want to provide this to other people. Is that kind of?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I can't keep this to myself. I want to share it, even if it's just like telling people, telling friends and family. But I thought I could totally.
As long as there's an affiliate link.
Right. I was like, I could totally do what they're doing right now, and at that time, our kids were home. We kept our kids home because everything was on Zoom, but everything was on Zoom. And so I figured, well, I mean, who knows the future and if I can use this to reach people. And yeah, I mean, obviously it doesn't take place of community, but we have great friends. We have a great church parish community and in our rosary group. And so I think as long as you do have those relationships, it's like an online course. So it's not for friends. It's not for a community, but yeah, it's the best we can do.
Yeah.
Technology. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So how many years now have you been doing the life coaching?
Just a year.
Oh, a year.
Yeah, just
okay.
a year. So yeah, I've been coached for a couple years and I've been a coach for a year.
Awesome. And you got a certification from, was it Cleveland?
State University.
Awesome. And what did you study at the Ohio State University?
Thank you for saying it the right way.
Well, it was typed that way in the bio.
I have to always correct people. Did you know that's a thing?
Oh, I'm very familiar. Yes.
Human development and family science and a specialization in child development. So I really just wanted to be a mom and I am.
You do a good job of it.
And I'm still staying at home, which is great, but I'm able to do this business, when it works, when Mark's willing to help out. And,
That's great. Yeah. So you have always kind of displayed an interest in understanding these things more deeply than just the face value, the surface level that most people kind of go into it. Like, I don't know what I'm doing with parenting. I don't know. You studied it. You studied life essentially.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people assume that, you have 8 kids and, you studied human development and, I taught for a few years. You must just like teach people how to be a mom. And I always go back to the mindset piece because that is a part of it. Like sometimes we talk about practical things. A mom might say like, how do I get my kids to sleep? How do I get my kids to listen? How do I, what do I do in this, marriage situation? And I don't really give advice and I don't like diagnose you as a therapist and I don't counsel you. It is just like, what are you thinking about it? How's that thoughts making you feel? And you need that other person. I mean, we coaches, we call ourselves sounding boards because it's really hard to like figure your problems out just talking to yourself.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times they figure it out on their own. It does help that I've had 8 kids. We've gone through an adoption process. We've had twins. Like I said, I have a teenager. I have a little one. My youngest is 1. So like I get all the things.
Yeah.
But I'm not like, there are a ton of great people that are there to teach you how to cook or tell you how to make food for a big family or better ways to clean, how to be organized. Like it's really just mindset work. Yeah.
So Alina and I have 4 kids. One of them is still an infant, but even with between the 4 of them, we already see, I mean, we're obviously the same parents. They've essentially all been raised in the same environment, but each one of them has such a unique personality. As early as in Layla, our infant, we see it in her already. She's so unique, so different than the other ones were at the same age. And so for you with 8 kids, like you're getting this very intimate encounter with so many different ways of being a human being, right? And I'm sure that has also, impacted a little bit your understanding of personalities, of all of that kind of stuff. What have you found in the life coaching between the training and then your experience doing it? What has been kind of are there any consistent threads of struggle that you're seeing, with some kind of redundancy, with some kind of pattern?
So like what I would see clients struggle with?
Yeah.
I think that a lot of moms are isolated and alone. We just don't live in the same culture that we used to, and it really like all of human history up until recently, if you want to look at the history and, more of a long-term look. We're just not with aunts and grandmas, and a lot of things we think we're the only ones dealing with. We can't just say, hey, have you gone through this?
Right.
And then the social media piece where you feel like everything has to be perfect and posted, that you're doing great. Like you feel awkward asking a friend if she struggles. So just they feel isolated, just knowing that other moms are thinking, like we're all pretty much the same. I always get okay, well, I don't want to tell you this because I don't want you to think I'm crazy. And then they say something that the last person said, or they say something that I hear every single time. So there's that. And then just how the mind can play tricks. I mean, to bring the spiritual side into it, that there's lies that come from someone and there's truth that come from someone. So just, there's this lie that I'm ugly, I'm stupid, my husband doesn't really love me, and then a coach is able to say like, didn't he just take you out to dinner last night? And like, write you this like love note? And like, yeah, but it's not really true. And it's like, we just sit in the lie and then we spiral down, and women are different than men. Like men are just take things like babies. They are a little more black and white, and us ladies are like dissecting and like
reading into everything.
And like just thinking it over and over, and it makes it so much worse.
That's so funny because half the time I'm talking to Alina, I'm like, babe, if you were just less introspective, this wouldn't matter. You would be totally fine.
Yeah. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if a coach is there to tell you like, just stop, right? Just like, it's not a helpful thought.
It's so easy to get triggered and then spiral.
Yeah. Even a thought that is true. Like if your husband says something that's not the kindest or not the most positive, and it's true, does it help to sit and think about it all day? But like for some reason we hold on to things as women, and it gets bad. So yeah, I guess I've seen what I've always known about women because I'm a girl and I've heard it my whole life. But just that, we need help getting out of that negative thought trap, and that we're isolated. So those are probably the two things.
I think that's awesome. That you're kind of able to provide through the training that you've gotten, and the experiences that you've had, that you're able to provide for the women that come to you, ways out of just being stuck in that. I refer to it as the cesspool. You get stuck in the cesspool, and you need someone to kind of pull you out. Before we get into the crisispregnancysupport.com ministry, I think it's time for a little Catholic weird stuff.
Catholic weird stuff. Why do they do the things that they do? Let's learn some Catholic weird stuff. It's a weird.
Today, for the Catholic Weird Stuff segment, Lauren is going to share with us some stories about Padre Pio. If you don't know who Padre Pio is, he's a pretty radical dude. In fact, so radical that the modern-day radical dude, Shia LaBeouf, is going to be playing this radical dude in a movie as soon as someone buys the rights to the movie and puts it out there, because it's done. It's just sitting there somewhere. Anyways, I digress. Padre Pio, Lauren, what you got?
I'm excited about the movie.
Oh, you didn't know about this?
I didn't know.
Oh my gosh,
What?
there's footage out there of it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah, so it's not hard to come up with something weird about Padre Pio.
You're not wrong about that.
So it's not. This wasn't a hard task for me today. But so among our 8 kids, we've had 2 miscarriages. So
I'm sorry.
10 total. Thank you. Our first miscarriage was our twins were just 2 years old. So this was 7 years ago, and found out we were pregnant. And at 8 weeks, I started to lose the baby. It just so happened that for some reason we decided to tell family really early on, like at 6 weeks, told extended family, told friends. We asked our good friends to be godparents. We hadn't really done that before that early. My friend Bridget, who is the godmother of the baby, we ended up naming him after a Polish saint. So our families are both from Poland, Stanislaus. But in Poland, they use the nickname Stasiu, which I think is so cute.
Wow.
So it's like a Stanley version of Stanislaus.
That's cute.
So little Stasiu had his godmother, Bridget, contacted me when she heard that it looked like I was losing the baby. she said she just so happened to know someone who had Padre Pio's chalice, right?
What?
She's that type of person, though. Like anyone else I know, I'd be like, what? But she's that type of person. She's always like, so moving forward, she is also the godmother to our son, Frank, who's now 6. And when Frankie was born, she came in with oils from Mother Angelica and like other blessed things. She's the only friend I have that would do
Where's
this
she
kinds of
getting
things.
this stuff?
She's amazing. That's why she's the godmother. I'm just like, where's the ice? And she's like, I came with blessed oils.
Oh
and
my
she's
gosh.
praying over me. She's awesome. So anyway, she's like, Lauren, go and pray with Padre Pio's chalice. So of course, Mark and I are like, we don't think twice about that. So we go, we meet up with this guy in Akron, Ohio. He gives us time to go into a chapel, take the chalice. We prayed, we felt peace. We were still losing the baby, ended up losing the baby. But we just felt so much peace we felt came from Saint Pio. And the next day, a good friend of ours who's also a godparent, he's godfather to our daughter Rose, one of the twins, he is now a priest, Father Patrick Schultz. At the time, he was a seminarian. So Patrick, the seminarian, said, I got to come over. I just have something for you guys. We're like, okay. And he knew about the baby, he was, with us there, praying for us and supporting us. And this is after the baby, this is a couple weeks later after I passed, the baby had passed away. And he goes, it's really weird, but I opened my drawer this morning and out of nowhere, there was a rosary of Padre Pio I've never seen before with his relic in it.
Whoa.
He goes, and I'm just guessing it's for you because all this weird Padre Pio, like you randomly have his chalice. And now there's a random rosary that I know was not in my drawer before. So he brings it over and we're just like.
That's crazy.
And anyways, he ended up getting the contact info with the guy who was hosting this chalice travels. And I don't know, I guess it goes everywhere. I don't know how you get it. But Father Patrick ended up contacting the guy and able to have the chalice at his ordination mass. Or was it his first mass? So he had Padre Pio's chalice at the mass. And he goes, at the time, we weren't thinking like, wouldn't it be so cool? We were just in this moment of grief and sorrow and like wanting to get this miracle, like maybe the baby will survive. But it ended up God using it for him and to have that opportunity. So
wow. Padre Pio's crazy. He's so cool, and he's always doing wild stuff. It's like so on brand for him to just like, I'm just gonna do this thing that doesn't make any sense. Right. I'm just gonna leave this random rosary in this drawer where it has no business being. Right. Man, there are so many stories like that. So our studio is in Bowling Green, Ohio, and when I was in college here in Bowling Green, the university parish, the Newman Center, would bring in different speakers to speak to college students and stuff. And one year, while I was there, they brought in an exorcist, and his name is Monsignor Esif. My buddy Andrew Reinhardt, who's also the host of the show Physically Spiritual here at Awaken Catholic, he was the campus minister at the time, and so he was the one driving Monsignor Esif, picked him up from the airport, driving him around, whatever. And during the time that they were in the car, Monsignor Esif was telling Andrew the importance of having a spiritual director, and Andrew was like, yeah, that makes sense. I should do. And Andrew takes it upon himself to be like, so who's your spiritual director? And Monsignor Esif said, Padre Pio. And Andrew was like, okay, sure, but like, who's your real spiritual director?
Yeah, but come on.
and he's like, Padre Pio.
Wow.
Like literally Padre Pio visits him from heaven and is a spiritual director. And Monsignor Esif is the real deal. Like he's not messing around. He wouldn't say it if it wasn't true.
Yeah, no, I've heard of him.
So absolutely wild. Padre Pio, such a G, such a radical guy.
Yeah.
Really excited for his movie.
Yeah.
If you want any more Catholic weird stuff, there is an endless supply if you just look up Padre Pio. Let's talk about the crisispregnancysupport.com ministry right after this segue to our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by CatholicMerch.store, the best place to find completely original and unique Catholic merch, apparel, drinkware. There's a scrunchie there. There's all kinds of goodies. And CatholicMerch.com is so kind as to allow all 100% of their proceeds to support the mission of Awaken Catholic. So check out CatholicMerch.store. So CrisisPregnancySupport.com.
What's on the scrunchie?
So we have this line of items called Uber Catholic, and basically it's a bunch of different Catholic like imagery, different like emblems, Trinity knot, the Jerusalem cross, the Eucharist with a chalice. Like it's like this huge confetti of Catholic.
Cool.
It's really cool.
Good for Christmas.
All over print. And so the scrunchie is the Uber Catholic scrunchie. So you're a life coach. You get certified. You're learning all about human development in college. And what becomes the segue? What's the connection between yourself, all of that background, and an interest and a passion in supporting women in crisis pregnancies?
Right. So I was working for, 8-9 months and coaching women one-on-one through Zoom. I've also talked to parishes, book clubs, prayer groups, all women, mostly moms, but all different ages. I've had young adult women, young moms, older moms, grandmas that I've coached. And in July, the Dobbs decision, comes down, and there's an overruling of Roe v. Wade. And I wasn't really thinking anything about coaching, quite honestly, until I think that first Sunday at Mass after communion, I was praying just about this Supreme Court decision. Like, what does this mean? It took a while for me to wrap my mind around it. I remember when it happened, Mark came in. I remember I was actually in our guest room, which I call my office, and he came and told me, and I was just in shock, and he's like, I want to cry. And my husband's just like, it's amazing. And I'm like, wow, I just can't even, I have to digest this for a minute. So I'm praying the Sunday after that decision's made at Mass after communion. And really, I just felt the Holy Spirit speak to me, say, think of all the women that have been helped through coaching, just all the tools that you teach them, all the ways that you've changed, how much it's helped you in your mental health. So how much more could women in a crisis pregnancy be supported? And I thought, oh, okay, great. Why don't we coach women who are abortion vulnerable? Single moms who find themselves pregnant, or married moms young women, anyone, teenager, find themselves pregnant. It's unplanned. I go to my coach. I talked about her earlier, Sterling, and she said, oh my gosh, I'm a Catholic coach for moms, and I know a lot of other Catholic coaches. You wouldn't have a hard time finding people to volunteer because the whole world is watching us now. We said we were going to support them. Now we have a chance to support them, and what are we going to do? So we quickly made a team of 7 life coaches. And then I collaborate through my business, which is Life Coach Mama, which is separate. It's a LLC, with a licensed counselor. He's also Catholic, and his company that he started, Sacred Heart in Cleveland, is a counseling company. And so his practice, he works as a counselor, which is different than coaching. But he's been great because a lot of things I want to be able to talk to him, get advice, and he's been really helpful as I've been starting my business. He's had his business for a while, and he knows when something is not for coaching, it's more for therapy. And he has sent me to be trained to help engaged couples through the Prepare Enrich program. So that's another part I do with my business. I do Prepare Enrich for engaged couples. And so we work together. And so I said, hey, I would love to also have a counselor on this team, because there are some times where you do need, psychological help, not just coaching. Yeah. And so he was willing to volunteer his time. So we have him and 7 women who are life coaches. They're in Tennessee, Florida, Idaho, and Ohio. And like I said, some of them I've never met, but we just all work on Zoom. And then we offer free life coaching for the women. We do a 12-week program on Zoom for the women that are in the crisis pregnancy. Wow.
Yeah. So first of all, if you are watching or listening to this and you yourself are in or have been in a crisis pregnancy, know that our hearts go out to you, and some of the hardest stuff anyone ever faces on the planet. That's so difficult. and there's no judgment. There's so much love, actually. Like, there's so much love being offered by people like Lauren and the other life coaches that are a part of the organization. And there's really nothing to lose. It's free. So I really want to encourage, whether it's you or someone you know, an invitation to check out Crisis Pregnancy Support.com, because it's really you're not alone. Like, it can feel so isolating. We need people, we need support, and I love even the use of that word in this. Like, those are situations in which women need to be supported. I think there's a tendency in our society to like look at a topic like crisis pregnancy, like abortion, and assume that people are so set in their ways that it's not worth engaging on the question. I remember before the Supreme Court overruled Roe versus Wade, for years, I would be kind of mocked by people that I care about, people that are in my family or whatever, for being a single issue voter. Yeah, my hands on the table. All right, and it to me was worth it. Like, obviously there was no perfect political party, whatever, but like, until abortion was overruled, Roe versus Wade was overruled, like, there was nothing else for me to concern myself with when I was voting. I would get told by people that I care about, like, it's pointless. Like, this is now the norm. This is what society is doing. Move on. And the reason I'm saying this is because when a woman is in crisis, it's easy to assume it, like, if she's on her way to an abortion clinic, even if she's like looking at that as the option for herself, it still, even then, is not too late to change course. A mutual friend of ours, Peter Range, I love the story of one of the encounters he has had, because nobody's spent more time at abortion clinics praying or counseling women outside of them than Peter Range. And
God bless Peter.
Yeah, WWPD is what I've been saying for years. What would Peter do? And it's helped me be a better man. But anyways, Peter, there was a woman that was being taken into the abortion clinic by some man, and he basically was like, "Please, I will take your child. Just don't kill it."
Yeah.
And he was serious. And she was like, "Okay." So they started the process where, like, he and his wife Laura were really going to adopt this child to save its life. And there was a point at which, further into the process, where they're getting an ultrasound, and the woman's looking at the ultrasound, and she's kind of tearing up, and she says to Peter, "Can I keep my baby?" He's just like, "Yes." And so, like, she was walking into the facility, and so a resource like crisispregnancysupport.com, like, if you're watching or listening to this, keep that name in your back pocket, because you never know who you're going to be interacting with that might be in a crisis pregnancy, that you can just share this website with, and it could totally change their life and save someone's life. Yeah. So you said that there are coaches all around the country. You said Florida, Tennessee, Ohio. You said a bunch of them. So how many coaches are there exactly? Is it 8?
7.
7. Okay. And so if someone goes to the website, what do they find?
So they find just what you said, if you're in a crisis, if you need help, we know we're here for you. And then there's another page of who we are. So a little bit of description of the coaches and the counselor. And then there's a page on the class, what you learned. So the 6 topics we do in the 12 weeks. And then how they can register, which is just emailing me. And then I start sending them the Zoom links. And then if anyone wants to donate, there's a donate button, of course, to keep us going.
Yeah, it's very noble work you guys are doing. Super important, and you do it for free. You were telling me that the coaches, they do this out of love. It's not like you guys are running home to the bank running home to the bank. Who lives at a bank? It's not like you guys are running to the bank laughing. This is like serious stuff that is a ministry. It's an act of love. And if you're out there and you want to support the work that they're doing, if you're not a coach, you could support it by donating or spreading the word about it, or both. If you are a coach, do you guys take applications from other coaches, or how does that work?
We do. I just had a coach ask me, and I'm bringing her on to the team, so there's probably going to be 8 here soon. But really, our issue is we have more helpers than people helping that we need help. we're just having a hard time finding the moms. Where do we find them? And of course, crisis pregnancy centers, and we've reached out to them. But like any good crisis pregnancy center, they're trying to vet us. So that takes time. We are listed as a resource under Students for Life. So if you go to Students for Life, Standing With You, which is also a good website to know about, Standing With You, their website tells you all the resources in the country. And we're on there, which is great, but we don't have boots on the ground on college campuses. We're not in health centers. Some pregnancy centers are spreading the word about us, but there's thousands. Just like there's thousands of college campuses. Churches are spreading the word. We're trying to get in that Walking with Women in Need with the USCCB, and that's just a slow process because they have to vet it because the USCCB can't put their name on something that isn't vetted. It's just taking time. It's been, word of mouth, social media, that we got a couple moms join our last 12-week class. We just finished our first 12-week class, and we'll start again January 10th. So it's really just letting women know we're here for them. And that's the hard part. So I'm so glad you're having me on, because I hope that women that need the support find out about it and see the website. And people that are in the pro-life movement, if they know we exist, they can help too. And I tell the pregnancy centers that we're like the fourth or fifth step. Granted, anyone can come to us, if they take a pregnancy test and they go on our website and they want to talk to us, but we're not in person. So we're not going to give you formula and give you diapers, and we can't give you a hug, and we don't have a physical location where you can go to. So we will right away say, find your local center, find your church, and we'll try to connect you with the people that really do a lot of the work and have been doing this for 50 years. But we're there more long-term and more like after they have decided to keep the baby. Because when you think about it, we talk about stress. We talk about feeling overwhelmed. We talk about pretty much what you talk about in life coaching, how to change your negative thought patterns, how to calm down, how to forgive yourself, how to forgive others, those who are not supporting you in your pregnancy. And women aren't necessarily going to sign on to that when they're in the moment of crisis. So it takes some time. They might need to talk to someone at a crisis pregnancy center. They might need a counselor, at a health clinic or a pastor at a church. But eventually we're there. So we don't compete at all with pregnancy centers because we don't offer anything they offer. But I like to tell them, you don't compete with us, because as far as I know, I haven't found any that offer life coaching. So we have something that they don't that would only just help their clients.
Yeah. And I have to imagine, though, that there are parts of the process of being a woman in a crisis pregnancy in the midst of the discernment of how to respond to the dilemma. I have to imagine that there are elements of that part of the journey that will benefit from coaching, because like when you're what the things that you're grappling with are thought patterns, are you're grappling with a tendency towards shame that may be programmed in you from childhood or from whatever. You're afraid of what the people around you are going to think. You're afraid of not being able to support yourself. And, I could see how spiraling into these things. I don't know. I feel like coaching would benefit that part of the process personally. Maybe I misunderstand the situation, but.
No, not at all. It's just is it realistic that they're going to go for that? If they're like, I don't know if I'm going to keep this baby, I'm not necessarily going to say, do you want to join my class and talk about self-confidence?
Yeah.
But it has been offered to me to train people, volunteers that work in crisis pregnancy centers, with coaching tools. And I would love to do that. But again, it's hard to make those connections because it's not like there's one organization that is connected to all the thousands. They're all their own little island. And so it's like, it takes a lot of time to email and call and get to know people. And, I'm in Ohio. I can't meet with everyone in all the other states. So it's just, it's taking a lot of time, and we want to figure out a way to get to the women sooner. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if I could train them to use the coaching techniques, for sure. The thoughts are, I'm all alone. I can't do this. Which are the same thoughts that my clients have in their not crisis life.
Yeah, it's part of the human condition.
This isn't going to work out well, right? Maybe I should just abort. My mom doesn't support me. My dad doesn't support me. The boyfriend doesn't support me. So I'm not supported. right? And so a coach comes in there and says, really? What about this group? What about
Mm-hmm.
me? What about, this friend? And that's what a coach does. A coach looks for ways that your thoughts are not true and your thoughts are not helpful. I can't do this. Oh, yeah, women have had babies since the beginning of time. Like, you can do it. I mean, there's a way to approach it because they're in a crisis. You wouldn't maybe talk to them the way you would talk to a woman who's not in a crisis. But the thought, like, I'm pregnant and this is horrible, is also just a thought. Is that true? Like, a woman who's been trying to get pregnant for 10 years, I'm pregnant is the best thought, right? And so it's, how are you looking at the pregnancy? But the world is still getting used to the idea of life coaching. It's a new field. And so it takes educating people.
Yeah.
About
And there
what it
are
is.
so many people out there online, buy this product, buy that product from me.
Yeah, like a magic pill.
Yeah.
Well, there's this idea, like, if you think it, I don't know what it's called, but if you think it, it happens.
The manifestation, the law of attraction.
And so, I mean, I think neuroscientists, if we just take religion out of it, have proved that if you think something, right, you're going to feel a certain way, and then you're going to act a certain way. And so it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Where you're not manifesting it.
There's an inherent truth to it, but that truth is not that you are some celestial God that, controls the universe with your thoughts.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it needs to be corrected, but don't many things. So I try not to get down on that. But I mean, once people see we're connected to faith, like we're faith-based and we're all involved in our faith, that usually helps. That we're not going to do any weird stuff with the women or say anything that they wouldn't agree with. I think pregnancy centers are our best bet at this point, trying to help those moms.
Yeah, and they're facing their own battles on such a, like here in Bowling Green, there was this recent thing, and I need to follow up to see how it went at the town hall because I was out of town when it happened. But there was this law that was being pushed in our city where any organizations or service providers that addressed the issue of pregnancy, so pregnancy centers, if the law passed, would have to offer abortion as a recommended option or something like that. I don't remember what the exact language was, but what that would do to our pregnancy center here in Bowling Green, disaster. So I need to follow up to see how that turned out, but it was, I mean, there were so many people up in arms about this, rightfully. I mean, such a blatant affront to our freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of literally being coerced by this law to offer something against their will, right? Insane. I think whatever we can do to support the work they're doing, the work that you're doing, I think is hugely important. Literally, human lives are at stake, and it's not just the baby; it's the mom. These are people that need support. So, thank you for the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I love, hugely passionate for, the theme, the pro-life stuff, and major advocate for anything in that vein. And I love the stuff that you have going on. So really great stuff.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Lauren Loboda from crisispregnancysupport.com. I have been Nick, and this episode has the perfect segue into our sponsor, CatholicMerch.store. Thank you for sponsoring this episode of the Awaken Catholic Show. CatholicMerch.store is your one-stop shop to get the coolest, completely original Catholic merch. Really, every design is completely unique. You won't find it anywhere else. And also, thank you, CatholicMerch.store, for all of your proceeds supporting Awaken Catholic's ministries. CatholicMerch.store to look as holy as you are on the inside. I have been Nick. This has been the Awaken Catholic Show. And before you go, I just need you to know that Jesus loves you. Peace.